This is going to be a quick video tutorial on how to use missing line on the POC 200 associated with the POS 180 and how it differentiates from reference line. So most people, when they go into missing line, they obviously have to go into applications. And again, the nice thing about applications is this doesn't require you to set the station up with any control points. All it asks you to do is make sure the station is level, and you can go ahead and use any of these applications you want. So I'm going to select missing line. It's going to tell me you're in this job. This actually doesn't matter what job I'm in, to just use it for just using purposes. But it does tell you the job you're in. You're going to say, okay, that's fine. You can go to new job if you want, but you're not really saving any information on the tablet. So here you see the first screen here is telling you to measure your first point, and the horizontal angle and the vertical angle, these are set back in theodolite mode if you really care about what angle you're at currently for this line. Again, most people don't care about this, but if you were working with a specific angle, you'd set that first in theodolite, and then come in here and you work with your angles easily. The height of rod only matters if you're using your prism, and it matters if you're going to be using a prism, and if you are dealing with different heights. It's a nice convenience there for you if you need to measure a distance using a prism and knowing from point A to point B not only the distance, but also you need to be specific about a height, and you can't reach that any other way other than with the prism. So I'm going to go ahead and measure. I'm going to choose a random point out here in a parking lot. I'm going to just zoom in. Let me just make sure on my eyepiece I'm zoom down on the ground. I'm going to measure it. And what you see already is that my horizontal distance from my station to the point on the ground is 42 feet, 7 5/8 inch. I'm going to go ahead and say next to measure my second point. I'm going to zoom just over to the right. I don't really care where. I'm going to zoom in my eyepiece to make sure I'm focused still on the same ground. I'm going to go ahead and measure my second point. Notice that my distance to the second point from the station has changed to 39 feet, but now I need to go to results to find out exactly the statistics of that line I just created. So on this line, I see my horizontal distance is 15 feet 4 3/4. I see that my difference in height from point 1 to point 2 is about 3 inches exactly. My slope of that line, if I needed the slope, is about 1.262%, or in clearer terms, 55 minutes 49 seconds of a degree. Now, one thing to notice here is that if I go into new line, I completely eliminate all the stats and I go create a new line from my station. But if I press next point, all this is asking me is to give it another measurement from the first point that I measured. So if I say new point, I'm going to go ahead and just randomly choose a point. I just turn my tool a little bit. I'm going to say measure. Again, it says, okay, this next point you have is 41 feet away from your tool. I'm going to say results. And here's my new line from my first point. Okay, so this line is now only 5 feet, almost 5 feet 1 inch away from the first point I created. My slope's a little higher. I'm not quite sure what the SD means, but horizontal distance is 5 feet 1 9/16 inch. So then I can just go back to next point, new line. Again, I can save it to make a report if I needed to, but or I just go home. So that is missing line. Now the problem that people have is that when you're in missing line, you measure your first point, measure your second point. Notice that no matter what, if I want to get a live read of the information, if I say next and measure second point, notice no matter how much I turn this tool, I'm going to turn it left and right, but notice that the only thing changing is my horizontal and vertical angles. It doesn't give me a live read of my distance from point A to point B. Most people wish it could, and there's a way to do that, but not in missing line. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go home, and instead we're going to use reference line. Now with reference line, you're going to need a clean job with no CAD file in order to do this. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to say a new job. I'm going to just create a new one. I'll call it ref for reference. I'm not going to have a drawing in here. It's just going to be a plain old job, and I'm going to say OK. Notice when I find ref, let me see it. I'm in ref. Notice there is no CAD, no nothing in here. I'm going to say OK. That's fine. That's what I want. And here I am in reference line. If I want to get back into it, I just go home, Click reference line. It shows me that I'm on this job. I'm going to say a new station. Now on a new station, because I'm not on a recorded graph system, I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to create a building line. I'm going to pretend that whatever out there is my building line. I'm going to set up anywhere because I'm not necessarily over any specific points, and I'm going to say okay. So now I'm going to go measure my first point, and this ideally would be the first point that you want to get a live read off of. So I'm going to go measure one point, and this is going to be a random point, and this is going to be my 0, 0. So I'm going to just turn the tool a little bit. Again, I'm on direct read, so I'm going to measure. Okay, now I'm going to be moving over to point 2. Now notice on here I am getting a live read, but only of the angles again, because I still need to set my second reference point. So I know that my first point, the distance from point 1 to point 2, is 43 feet. Let's see what the second point is. I just randomly moved it over to the right. Okay, my new point's 40 feet away. So I just measure my building line. I'm going to say calculate it. I'm going to set it as a station. I need to say my station height. I'm going to just say everything's 0. No big deal. My height of rod 0 because I was using direct read. I'll say OK. Set my new station. And now I have a new reference line based off these 2 points that I have. So I say OK, I'm using that new station. I'm not going to offset the line. I'll just keep the line exactly where it is. And now it starts giving me a live read, okay? So if I wanted to create a point, I could and name it RLL0, reference line layout 0, but right now it's telling me, okay, right now for my 0, 0 live read, I'm 10 feet, 7 3/4 inches down the line north. So from 0, 0 to positive north, I'm 10 feet north, and I'm off the line about 1/8 of an inch. Now if I move this point A to point B, it tells me how much closer I'm getting live to the point. Now I went a little bit too far back. I'm about 11 inches off 0, 0. I'm going to move back. I'm just turning the tool, but you're seeing a live read along that line. So that's a really convenient way. If you need a live read from a 0, 0, just use a reference line. Just create a new point, or just create a new job. This job isn't going to be much of anything, because all you're trying to do is get live reads from a line, create your 0, 0, create a second point along that line, and then start getting live reads directly from your tool along that line. You'll be able to get it automatically. Again, I'm using point to line, which basically means I'm moving my tool to a specific point and it's telling me my offsets of the line. I could even go line to point and have the tool tell me exactly where to go to get to a specific reference that I want on the line. So that's how you get your live reads. It's really convenient. Missing line gives you just a quick measurement, while reference line will let you get a nice live read after you set up your station with 2 points that you want along that line.